All right. I need to get back. Good. So welcome everyone to day 2 of our conference on educating for digital citizenship. In case you didn't hear yesterday, I'm Paul Schacht, professor of English and director of the Center for Digital Learning at SUNY Geneseo. The other conference organizers are Ed Beck, educational technologist at SUNY Oneonta, Jennifer Snyder, program coordinator at the SUNY Center for Professional Development, Tony DeFranco, director of operations for SUNY OER Services, Anna Joffrey at SUNY Polytechnic, Michael Kramer at SUNY Brockport, Ryan Clow, University of Albany, and Maurice Giangela at SUNY Purchase. Our conference actually began Wednesday with a full day of pre-conference workshops. Yesterday's schedule began with a 7-minute lightning round presentation, and then was followed by concurrent longer presentations, and we'll follow that same format today. As they did yesterday, our presenters today will be giving us tools and ideas for helping students develop the ability to distinguish information from misinformation and disinformation, to leverage online networks for purposes of advocacy and activism, to build public-facing websites that make data-informed arguments, preserve cultural heritage, or amplify marginalized voices, to be as secure as possible from governmental and commercial surveillance, and to distinguish AI hype from AI reality and AI opportunities. In yesterday's plenary session, I spoke with digital privacy researcher Chris Gilliard. In today's plenary session at 2:15, so that's a different start time from yesterday's, please take note, we'll hear from Katelyn Fitzpatrick, Director of Digital Humanities and Professor of English at Michigan State University, where she also directs MESH, a research and development unit focused on the future of scholarly communication. Kathleen's talk is titled Open Matters, and in it, she'll make the case for developing open source, academy-owned alternatives to the extractive, shareholder-driven, corporate-owned platforms that dominate so much of higher education right now. Kathleen's talk is the perfect way to close out a conference that asks us to consider how we can help students develop the skills they need to be effective, responsible, autonomous, democratic citizens in a digitally mediated society. Her talk will challenge us to consider how our digital teaching and learning tools and platforms either align with or stand at odds with that goal. A couple of quick reminders. Please try to be prompt when joining your sessions so as not to disturb the presenters, and be sure to mute your mic and turn off video, excuse me, when not fully attentive. And please do use the chat and the Q&A in the plenary to ask lots and lots of questions. If you have any issues during the conference, please contact cpdinfo@suny.edu for assistance, and the CPD will do their best to get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you have a wonderful day 2 of the conference, and that you continue to discover new perspectives and new tools for your teaching. And let me ask whether Tony would like to say some words this morning, or Ed, or Jennifer.
Yeah, I'll say a quick hello. Thanks, Paul. On behalf of SUNY OER Services, thanks for attending the conference. We're grateful to the organizing committee, Paul, Ed, Jen, and the rest of the committee for putting together such a great conference, and also SUNY Center for Professional Development for their hard work in organizing the event. Being one of the largest public university systems, we really understand the importance of the work that's going on, and we think this is a great opportunity to showcase that work. So again, we look forward to the talks today and hope you enjoy the presentations. Ed.
I've got nothing to add, Paul. Thank you so much.
Great. We got about 5 minutes before we begin, and so I think we should give folks who might not have arrived yet a little bit of time. So we'll start right at 10:10.
Great. There you go.
And so welcome everyone to this day 2 lightning round. And our first presenter is Sarah Bryans Bongey. Sarah, go ahead and share your screen and we'll get started.
Okay. 1 second. So hello, I'm Dr. Sarah Bryans Bongey. I was excited to incorporate AI in my graduate level college course this semester. The students were specifically engaged in learning about instructional design and teaching of a fully online course. So AI was a great tool to introduce in that context. So just a little context as far as the growth of AI in higher ed. This is basically a literature review that was conducted, just tracking the literature itself, the volume of literature itself on undergraduate and graduate use of AI in higher education. And so you can see there was a dramatic increase between the years of 2019 and 2021, and it started to level off a little afterwards. But it's definitely a player in our world. So how can I, as a college instructor, support graduate students in their responsible use and effective use of generative AI? So again, the course in particular was an online course, and it was helping students learn how to design and teach online and hybrid courses. So some of the instructional strategies I used were, first of all, an assignment that required their AI use. Now, that was the only thing that they absolutely needed to use with AI. The rest of the course, they weren't required to use AI. They were allowed to use AI. So this particular assignment asked them to cite their resources, verify the AI content that they received, and then reflect on their AI use. Also, other clear guidelines that were provided to help them become responsible citizens in the use of AI included a class policy, which clearly laid out, and that's on the right-hand side of the screen. It was specific to this class because I know a lot of other professors aren't necessarily eager to incorporate AI, but in the context of this class, it provided them with guidelines as to how they need to proceed, how they need to be responsible, how they need to cite their resources and be transparent in their use. And then additionally, in addition to those clear guidelines, myself modeling ethical use. So anytime I had an image in my course that was generated by AI, anytime I used AI myself, I would be careful to model it so that they knew that, that I was citing that resource, that I was reflecting on the quality of the resource and so forth. So before the course, 60% of the students had rarely or never used generative AI tools. So that was kind of interesting. And it also showed me, you know, after the fact, I didn't know this going into it, that 60% had not used them. But now that made it even more important that the course throughout promoted responsible and productive use of AI tools. So that involved the completion of assignments to generate course resources. And specifically, there was that one assignment. And what you're seeing on this page to the left is Welcome to Fourth Grade Astronomy. A student created that. That's the homepage of one of my students' courses. She developed it around fourth grade astronomy. And so you can see that image there. That was generated by an AI tool. She wanted a specific image, and she was able to type into the AI tool what she wanted to have, and she came up with a beautiful image for her homepage. And then on the right, that's the assignment that I asked students to do. It was actually a compilation. Every module, for the first 3 modules, students were asked to go out and find resources, incorporating the use of AI to locate those resources. And so also they were encouraged to use AI for ideas and brainstorming and other aspects of the process, but they were not required. So 70% of the students said that AI tools did enhance their productivity. And the top 3 important guidelines or policies that students felt an instructor or designer should require of students in the academic setting when using artificial intelligence is guidelines on ethical use. That was the first choice, top choice. Then transparency of use. That was actually pretty close to ethical use. And then I was excited to see this third one, evaluating the credibility of AI. Because if you've used AI extensively, you know that it's not always accurate. So evaluating the credibility is as important as remembering to cite it and being transparent in its use. They chose it third, so that was great. So students had a lot of comments regarding their own AI use in the context of their graduate course. there was definitely a progression. If you're looking at these comments, there was definitely progression. You can see that they're tending to the importance of citing their resources and so forth. So students started maybe more hesitant, but then by the end of the course, they looked at it in general. This is a pretty much trend as a good tool. And just for fun, I pasted in all those student comments into OpenAI, into ChatGPT, to get a summary of what ChatGPT thought they said. And it pretty much aligns very well with what my assessment of what the students said. So it's kind of like a little mini lit review based on those comments from the students. So all students felt that AI should be allowed at the college level, but with varying restrictions or qualifications. And you can see that the majority, 40% of students felt it should only be allowed at the graduate school level, and of course with some guidelines. Many students also felt that it's likely that their experience using AI in college and in my course, but in other courses possibly, this will now enable them to make responsible use of AI in future courses and in their career. So that's kind of a testament to the value of using it. So what I like to frame this as is for my students and myself to view AI as a productive yet flawed employee. You need to communicate, guide, interact with that AI interface. You need to give credit when credit is due, and you need to verify the quality of that employee's work. For now, AI is free, but you've got your free employee, take advantage of exploring its talent. So thank you very much for listening to my session. You can please ask me questions. I've got my AI link to this AI lightning session here. And here is my reference for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Wow, you hit 7 minutes right on the nose, Sarah.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Jennifer Morrison.
Okay, oopsie, I went to the end. Okay, 16 days of online activism, really sponsored by the United Nations. So my name is Jennifer Morrison, and that I'm currently an accessibility counselor at SUNY Erie Community College. But I did this project when I was at Trocaire College, which is a small private primarily nursing college in Buffalo, just like not even 800 students, just to give you a sense of where I was. And my role was to respond to and prevent interpersonal violence, specifically the 4 crimes of dating violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. So that's where this programming originated out of. But because it was successful, I'm actually thinking about doing something similar in Disability Awareness Month in my current role. So the only problem is Disability Awareness Month is 30 days, which is a bit more daunting. 16 days is very manageable. But so what is the 16 days of activism? Actually, let me minimize this. There we go. So it's an annual international campaign that starts on November 25th, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it runs until the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. And they connect the two because the biggest violation of human rights is violence against women. So I just mentioned that it has a long history, going back to 1991, a long history relative to activist campaigns, and it was started outside the UN, but the UN adopted it in 2008. And it fit with my role at the college at Trocaire College because as part of my mission was to provide programming, but we have commuter students who don't go to programming. They go to classes and they leave. So that's where I decided to make it online, which was very easy in this case because the UN provides so many digital resources for students to be activists. I just pulled a menu of digital activities together, way more than 16, so that students had choices. I provided links and QR codes on flyers around campus. They were on the screens, the QR codes, and on boards so that students could pick up these things. If you have access to your college's social media presence, then you could definitely push this stuff out, 16 days of activism every day, and people can like repost it. But that wasn't possible at my college, but it could be possible for you. I could have sent daily emails to, remind students, but I don't send emails as much because students don't read them. And then if you have a learning management system like Blackboard or Brightspace for your program or class, then that's a great way to distribute, digital materials. So you can see videos. The UN provided a number of videos, and there's other great videos out there. I just grabbed a picture of one. You can give students the emails. So I sent them the email addresses of their local elected officials so that they could ask their local elected officials, what are you doing to end violence against women? There's many online petitions that have to do with ending violence against women. And one that I liked, I included the screenshot, was including statutory warnings for violence against women. Like there's statutory warnings about smoking and alcohol consumption, but not violence against women. It would be very useful to me. And then, of course, there's podcasts, maybe short podcasts that students can listen to. I will say one thing I liked about this activism campaign is that not just students, it was for the whole college community. So staff, faculty, everybody was invited to participate. Raising awareness is actually very useful in this case. A lot of people don't recognize violence when it happens because it's been normalized and even romanticized in our culture. So just helping them understand what it is, and to understand it's not always physical, sometimes it's emotional, spiritual, financial. So raising awareness was a good thing. You can see I did a screenshot. The UN provides a social media toolkit. There's hundreds of posts that students can pick up and repost if they're interested on all sorts of aspects of ending violence against women. And then there were just some other forms of activism I threw out for students, or for really the whole college community, like starting conversations, strategies for starting conversations with people who might be in unhealthy relationships, volunteer opportunities to help female victims of violence, links to places that take donations like women's shelters, and ways to fight masculine and feminine stereotypes, which can lead to violence against women. So those weren't things that students would like retweet, but they were things students could do. I incentivized this by asking students if they wanted to share with me what they were doing online. I would give them giveaways, granola bars in my office, or I always table in common areas, and, students could share with me what they were doing, and I would just, reward that behavior. And then in terms of assessment, if you promoted this on a learning management system, you would obviously have counts of what students were hitting. And if you were able to do this through your college's social media channels, you would obviously see activity there. But since I didn't have either of those, I just asked students, what kind of response they were finding. And I got some interesting responses, largely positive. I remember one person telling me her friend is not ready to have this conversation. She tried it. Of course, the first strategy in initiating this conversation is be prepared to have multiple conversations. It's never just one conversation. One person told me that she was addressing stereotypes, and she realized her son thinks boys don't cry, so she's working on that. And then another student, that Trocare has required service hours, and her friends and her were going to do their service hours at Haven House, one of the local shelters. So I'm going to stop sharing. I did make notes of things I wanted to say. One of the things I like about this project is it's not a partisan issue. So students can participate and be activists without feeling like they have to identify. And yes, I think I'll stop there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You had 15 seconds to spare. Great job. All right, next up we have Melissa Wells.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So today I'm going to be talking about modeling UDL, Universal Design for Learning, for implementation and application. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity to speak about this important piece within higher education. And so we're going to explore this piece here and being able to distinguish these strategies that you can model and utilize that your students can take back and then do in their participatory world. And so we're going to embody and model the principles of universal design for learning in our teaching. And this approach isn't just about accessibility, it's about designing our courses and pedagogy for equity and to ensure all students have access to learning and can apply the principles in their practice. And so let's explore it. Let's see what we can do to make our teaching more inclusive for everyone. And so first, let's understand why UDL is crucial in today's educational landscape. If you saw my talk yesterday, I talked a little bit more about it, but our classrooms are increasingly diverse, not just culturally, but in how students learn and process information. And UDL helps us reach every student by considering that diversity at the core of our design and our teaching methods. And UDL stands on 3 pillars: engagement, where we capture students' interests and motivate them; representation, offering content in various formats; and action and expression, providing those multiple ways for students to demonstrate their learning. And so integrating these pillars into our teaching is the key to truly inclusive education. Focusing on engagement, we aim to motivate our students actively and emotionally. This can be achieved through interactive lectures, collaborative work, or integrating real-world problems that spark curiosity. And so how can we design activities that are both inclusive and engaging for every student? Take the initiative, think about your students, and think about those pieces that will say, hey, I want to actually do this. In terms of representation, we strive to provide information through multiple formats, so texts, diagrams, videos, interactive simulations. And this diversity ensures that all students, regardless of their learning preferences or challenges, can access the material effectively. When it comes to action and expression, we provide students with various ways to show what they know, show what they've learned. And this might include traditional exams or projects, portfolios, or digital storytelling. Offering those options allows students to use their strengths and work around their challenges. So how do we start implementing UDL in our courses? Well, it begins with reflecting on our current teaching practices and identifying areas for integration. So consider your course objectives, materials, activities, and assessments. How can they be adapted to align with the UDL principles? And by modeling UDL principles in our teaching, we not only make learning accessible, but also teach our students these valuable principles. They learn to recognize diversity in learning needs and apply UDL principles in their future professional practice, becoming advocates for inclusive education. We all play a crucial role in shaping an inclusive educational environment. By embracing UDL in our teaching, we ensure every student has an equal opportunity to succeed. So let's commit to continuous learning and improvement in our practices for the benefit of all students. And so I think I'm not over time, but thank you so much for your attention. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or strategies you found effective in your teaching. And we can always discuss how to make our classrooms more inclusive for every student. And so with that.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was great. With some time to spare. So we're going to move ahead to our next presenter. And I think we're on track to have a decent amount of time at the end for people to ask questions and have some conversation around these terrific presentations. So let's move on to Katelyn.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm Katelyn Prager. I teach in the English and Communication Studies department at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I teach digitally focused classes, so courses in digital rhetoric and digital literacy. So within those courses, students need to create a variety of different digital projects for different audiences on different platforms. And one of those assignments is a digital activism campaign, which asks students to develop a project with the goal of moving an audience to some kind of action. Successful activism campaigns depend upon a wide range of factors: a successful message, being well researched, finding the right audience. However, in our increasingly saturated digital spaces, gaining an audience for a message is not a given. And our attention economy necessitates that messages have to vie for readers' time. So I like to emphasize the importance of Kairos in achieving maximum impact for students writing. So Kairos, oh, there we go. Kairos contrasts with Chronos or chronology, which is maybe a term more of us have heard or been familiar with. So Chronos is time measured quantitatively, so seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, and years. Kairos instead thinks about time measured qualitatively. So timing or opportunity might be a good translation of this term. And it suggests that we offer arguments when the time is right. So I think climate change is a great example of this. Scientists have been making arguments about climate change for decades, but really only within the past decade have those messages gained a wide public engagement, likely due to, recognizing changes in our physical world and politicians taking these issues up. So that's a term that we might consider relatively kairotic today. So Scipioria and Baumlin, I need to move myself so I can see this. One way to consider the kairos of an issue then is to explore the history of the issue. Another is to pay careful attention to the arguments made by other parties in order to cultivate a better understanding of why people are disagreeing in a particular time and place. In short, the rhetor must be aware of the issue's relevance to the time, place, and the community in which it arises. So how do we measure kairos? How do we quantify kairos? In my classes, I like to use Google Trends for this. Google Trends is a free tool available within the Google Suite that allows us to search any term and see the relative public interest in that term at any given place or time. So I'm going to share with you a couple of examples just to show how this tool works and how we use it. So the first example is a rather dated one. It's the Ice Bucket Challenge. You may all remember from 2014. And I like this example because of that sharp peak in this timeline, which I think is a really good visual indicator of that challenge of attention that we all confront in online spaces. So that steep rise and fall in public interest. We move further into the Google Trends data. We can also see interest by subregion, as well as the related queries that people search when they're thinking about this term. So the goal of the Ice Bucket Challenge was to motivate people around ALS, and we can see through the related queries that it seems to have been successful in doing that. I'm going to move to a more recent example, which is the hashtag Time's Up movement from 2017. And here again, you can see that kind of ubiquitous spike that we see in a lot of Google Trends charts. And if we move further into this data, we can see that this topic didn't gain quite as much traction. We're seeing kind of lower levels of engagement. And if we look to the related queries, we can see that the hashtag #MeToo is the top one there. So another great feature of Google Trends is that it allows us to simultaneously search multiple terms side by side to understand relative interest in contrast to one another. So here you can see I've added hashtag #MeToo as my second search term, which is indicated in red in this chart. And you can see how the interest in that topic really dwarfs the interest in the hashtag Time's Up movement. So if I was working with a student who was interested in exploring this topic, we might discuss the hashtag #MeToo as a more productive way to move forward to gain more of an audience for that topic. The final one I'm going to show you here is a more recent one, which is Earth Day, which is coming up early next week. So you can see here I've shown the Google Trends chart for just the past 12 months in relation to this topic, where you can see on the left side of the screen kind of the decline of interest after last year's Earth Day, and on the right side of the screen, the beginning of the peak in interest for this year's Earth Day. However, if we zoom out the timeline, we can also see larger trends in relation to interest around this topic and the ways that though we have that recurring, consistent yearly spike in interest, that spike is slowly declining as the years go by. So we're kind of showing a lessening of interest in Earth Day, which might be an interesting question to explore for a student project. So of course, all of this research is just one piece of a larger student project to investigate Kairos. So I asked students to think about the what, when, who, where, and why of their message. And Google Trends can help us answer when, right? But it's only a first piece of a larger project. And to answer that who, where, and why, students will need to seek additional sources. So after they've acknowledged through Google Trends that a given topic is trending, they can move to social media to track relevant hashtags to understand what different groups are saying about that topic. They can move to online news sources to understand what the news coverage is saying. And most importantly, they can then reflect on their findings to think about what all of this data can tell us about the larger kairos of this issue. I think big picture, this assignment helps students to better visualize the challenges of our attention economy and to initiate some larger conversations around this concept of time in developing effective digital messages. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Katelyn. That was great. And boom, we're right at 7 minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nick and Serenity, you're our last up, and after your presentation, we'll have some time for Q&A and discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. And I believe I am also Nick today. So I am both Serenity and Nick. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all of the fantastic presentations so far. I'm going to set my timer so that I can follow along with everyone's wonderful timekeeping that they've done so far. So basically, what we're hoping to do in this lightning talk is let you all know about a potential resource that we have been working on over the past couple years and have actually fallen a little bit stagnant in the last year, and we're looking for community feedback and community interest. So the resource that I'm talking about is called New York Digital Humanities, NYDH, and it is a group of people who are interested in teaching in digital humanities, researching in digital humanities, and being involved in kind of collectively coming together to share resources, to share tips and tricks in the classroom, and to talk about how we can grow this field. So really quickly, just because I'm not sure of everyone's background here, I just will outline briefly what we mean when we say digital humanities. These are efforts or methods that take humanities type questions or humanities typed products and attempts to digitize them or engage with them in a way that emphasizes the digital format. So for example, could be working in the archives to digitize the materials that are typically held in an archival setting and make them accessible to everyone. Or it could be working with a well-known text and doing some sort of data mining or textual mining related to themes found within the text. There are lots and lots and lots of approaches. And so given kind of the wide approaches and methodologies that exist within the digital humanities, one thing that we noticed kind of looking out across SUNY was that this is a bit of a resource intensive field, and how can we do a better job of sharing our resources across SUNY? How can we support each other better within the New York area within the digital humanities? And so one of the reasons that we thought that doing this across the SUNY system would be a really great way to collaborate is because SUNY does offer wider cross-campus resources. And so we were able to get some grants to put together events and connect and do this sort of meetup that we were hoping to do prior to the pandemic. So before the pandemic, we had a series of meetings at the University of Buffalo, at SUNY Geneseo, and then the pandemic happened and we had a meeting online, and then the pandemic kept happening and we didn't have any more meetings. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, is where the group has been very grassroots. It's been very sort of like 3 or 4 people doing a lot of work, but then also experiencing a bit of turnover, people kind of leaving for other institutions. So what we were hoping to do today is present to everyone New York Digital Humanities as a possibility for growth and as a way to connect across our many disciplines and our many institutions. Prior to the first event, we had created some infrastructure. We had a Slack channel that's still ongoing, that people could connect and kind of do that very difficult process of communicating across institutions to share resources. And we also had a website that kind of served as a site of community. So we're looking to relaunch our website, and we're looking to revivify the Slack and email list to get us connected again. One of the things that we noticed when we were looking kind of across the New York the digital humanities landscape in New York generally, is that there are a lot of little pockets of things happening. So there's a humanities corridor, there's stuff happening between 1 to 2 to 3 universities. And we really wanted to be inclusive and buck that trend of like, oh, there's this group over here, this group over here, and really try to grab together as many people who are interested in working in digital methodologies as possible. And so, I think one challenge that we're having is how we exemplify that capacious definition of what we mean when we talk about the digital. I myself am an associate professor in communication studies, and so I have colleagues who approach digital methodologies from all manner, or digital questions from all manner of methodologies. So it could be thematic analysis, it could be statistical analysis, it could be focus groups. They're bringing a lot of different things to the table. And so how do we kind of have a collective conversation around these different methodologies? But we're all still doing digital scholarship. We're all still doing digital teaching in the classroom. I think we see that represented here today in the lightning talks, where we've seen the different ways that all the previous presenters have been integrating digital technologies into their pedagogical materials. So I think these are some of the questions and some of the challenges that we're having in NYDH, is that we want to get relaunched with more of a open, inclusive approach to saying all of these disciplines are part of what we're doing, and we really want to grow the community. So yeah, I'll just kind of end there by saying that this is an invitation, and if you are interested in getting in touch, I invite you to email me. We're hoping to put together a board instead of just having 1 or 2 people who are going to be organizing these conferences. It will be a board who will start to put it together, and will start to grow and hopefully make a name for digital humanities happening at SUNY. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Serenity. And I just dropped into the chat a link to information people can find about that one NYDH meeting that took place online during the pandemic, on editing and encoding in the undergraduate classroom for people who are getting interested in some sense of what the group's been involved with. And full disclosure, I'm a member of this group with Serenity and Nick Wasmoen, and had the honor of being part of the attempt to build community. I want to echo what I hear Serenity saying about this conference being an opportunity to pull some people into an ongoing community where not just at events like this, but in an ongoing way, we can be supporting each other in our work and sharing resources and coming together for good conversations. So we've got about 5 minutes for conversations, questions for our presenters. Please just go ahead and unmute and ask away if you've got a question for any one of the presenters, or you've got a thought that you want to share.
Well, I am a presenter, but I have a question for Sarah, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yes.
I'm kind of curious, did any of your students say, did any of your students have like an aversion to using AI, or did they like push back and like say like, oh, I can't do this, or what was their reaction?
Yeah, there was one student who was initially hesitant, but I mean, I think as the semester went on, that opinion changed. They were also, a lot of them were feeling like, "Ooh, can I really do this? Is this allowed? Am I?" Because they've been so afraid to use it because they don't want to be slapped with the plagiarism label, So it was kind of like I felt that little tension in the beginning, probably among all of them, even the ones who were more positive. But the one student who was negative at first said, "Oh, I'm not really wanting to use it. I'm not really finding anything." And then eventually, I said, try coaching it with different questions, asking for something interactive. Because he was trying to come up with something that would work with his course on abstract algebra, I think it was. So, I mean, so just try new questions and so forth. So by the end of the course, I think he hadn't been totally converted to, oh yeah, I'm going to use it all the time. But I think that was a progression from initial distaste, probably closer to the level of distaste, all the way to, maybe it's okay, and then other people had a trajectory that was more positive.
I really like the way you've designed this learning experience for students so that you are modeling responsible use for them. I think that provides really important guidance, and it's very different from just sort of having a list of things for them to think about.
Thank
You've
you.
built it into the experience. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there was one class session where I didn't know, I had like 15 minutes I knew was going to be empty. So I went to AI and I just said, what are some good conversational questions that I could ask my students about important design practices when approaching hybrid learning? Because I was just like, I was tired. It was the end of the day. Came up with like 20 questions. I picked a few and tweaked them and offered them out. And I was very transparent. I said, and by the way, I got these from AI. You don't always have to disclose in everything because some things are just like, you're going to tweak them,
Yes.
but I got these from AI. And so so being transparent yourself. Yeah, thank you. So I don't want to talk anymore because I'm sure there are other questions.
Yeah. Other questions for presenters or thoughts that people want to share? I have a question for Jennifer. So I'm wondering whether you yourself or anyone else who has made use of this toolkit has gotten any pushback from their institution, that people who've tried to do it, pushback from their institution that activism doesn't really belong here. That's not what we do. We're just about teaching and learning, and we don't think institutionally we should be taking sides on big issues. That sort of has that been a problem at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, I sent everything to our, the person who manages our social media, and nothing was posted, which Trocaire is a Mercy college. And one of the critical concerns of the Sisters of Mercy is women. So it's right on brand,
Yeah.
but nope.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't feel good enough for, that sort of thing. So, they're just keeping it positive and don't want people to think about violence against women.
Yeah, that's a real shame. Um, I'm really interested in seeing if I can interest folks at my institution about this. And we've recently redesigned our curriculum, and it's very social justice oriented. And I think that kind of orientation in a curriculum gives you an opening to press people and say, how could this be wrong for us? This is exactly what we are telling our students we want them to learn about, think about in their coursework. We can model this as an institution for them. So I'm really interested to see what kind of response I get if I bring it back to my own institution.
You know, even if you just get it out to the community somehow, I feel like it makes a difference because this is a topic that needs awareness.
Yeah. Fabulous. All right, we are right at 10:50, so I want to make sure that people have a chance for break between now and the beginning of the next session at 11. Thank you all so much. This was really terrific. I learned a ton, great conversation, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, use that PDF you got sent this morning as your map for the day. Our next two sessions, we've got building a community interpreting past or history of brickmaking in Rockland County. I think that's an Omeka project I'm very excited for.
Yeah.
And then we also have kind of a thought piece. We have library anxiety in a digital world. So I think there's no wrong choices for the next session, and we've got a lot of great presentations throughout the day.